I'm Faith.
And I'm Steve.
And this is your friendly neighborhood home inspector. This week, for the month of September, we will be covering getting your home ready for an inspection. You ready?
I am. You want to start?
Yeah, what do you want to start with?
Okay, so as Faith mentioned, this is September. This is the end of summer 2022 in Springfield, Missouri. And what a summer it's been. Things have changed a little bit since the end of spring 2022. Just a few months ago, the housing market was at a state we had lower interest rates, and sellers really held the reins for the home buying and selling process. People were still getting bidding wars in the driveway, multiple offers. Homes were selling within hours. They'd have offers and they'd be closing within a few weeks. And so in such a strong seller's market, sellers, or buyers, I should say, were having to really make concessions to get the house bought. They'd have to make multiple offers, and they were writing letters to the sellers. They were foregoing home inspections altogether. They were writing, I forget the term for it, where if it didn't appraise out, they would make up that difference. So say you bought a house for $100,000, you made an offer for $100,000, but it appraised for $110,000. You would come up with an additional $10,000 to make up that difference. So that was showing just how strong our market was for the sellers. So in the last 100 days, interest rates have creeped up, and we're at a much more normal market where buyers and sellers' power in the negotiation is much more equal. Mm-hmm. So as that happens, and as that continues, the sellers are going to want to start putting their best foot forward when they list their house. I mean, there is houses being sold in the springtime that people weren't even taking the time to clean the house. They're like moving out, leaving the stuff there, and people were happy to get in the house and take care of the cleaning and moving the junk out because they were just so glad to have a house.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So this week, since the market's changed, we're going to cover a bit of getting your home ready for an inspection, what you want to really do before you list the home or right after you've listed the home and you haven't gotten any offers. Yeah, just before people start touring the home. And
to give you your best impression for prospective buyers.
And keep in mind, this is from a home inspector's perspective, so they've probably seen it towards the end of the transaction, not near the beginning. But these are just things from a person who's bought a few homes in the past, as well as experience going into a ton of homes.
And so, yeah, bought a few homes and sold a few homes.
What should be like step number one? To finding the little things that you don't want to really miss, or that would sour a person.
Right. We talk about dissatisfiers or red flags. So I don't get any joy in pointing out concerns to people on the house they're buying it. The less concerns there are, the happier the buyer is going to be with the decision to buy the house. And you want to give your home's impression to the buyer and the agent that it's a home that you're proud of and you take care of. Take a fresh look at your house when you're listing it as if you were buying it. You know which doors stick. It probably has some light bulbs burned out that are high up on the ceiling that you've just gotten used to them being burned out. Things that aren't working, like maybe a three-way switch in a hallway that you always have to have the far switch up to make these things work. Those things are going to be noted and pointed out during the inspection because that's what we do. We observe and we report. Those are not difficult things to fix. Go through the house and adjust the doors as needed, replace all the light bulbs that aren't working. Imagine this. I'm with a buyer. I'm going through the house. I flip the switch on. 3 of the lights don't come on. I'll say to the buyer, well, the bulbs are probably burned out. But we really don't know if it's the bulb or the fixture or the socket or if the switch has a malfunction. Mm-hmm. I can figure them out. I can find out which one of those 3 things it could be. But that's beyond the scope of what we're going to do because we're only there for a few hours. I'm not going to start taking things apart or replacing light bulbs in someone else's house or get up on a ladder and change the light bulb. Obviously, if it's a light that I can reach, I'll often go steal a light bulb from another room and switch them out just to prove it out. With a big cathedral ceiling, you can't. Each time one of those things happens, the buyer's registering like, oh, this place isn't really kept up or taken care of. So we want to take all those easy, low-hanging fruit and clean all that stuff up.
So just your light bulbs that are burned out that you've been meaning to replace, been on your to-do list. get those replaced before you start listing the home, just because you'll thank yourself, the future homeowner will thank you, just not having to get that stuff on their to-do list. When you're moving into a home, there are dozens of other things before getting a new light bulb in, but you'll notice that it isn't in.
Right, as you're looking at the house, right.
And it isn't just helpful for you to be looking through your house, seeing those little things, because although you live there, you start like glazing over them with your eyes. You just stop seeing the issues after
Like
a while.
they call it nose blindness when you're in the commercial, right? When you don't notice the cat smell because you're living in the house. Yeah, I think you're starting in on that point. Get a friend who's honest to you and isn't going to blow sunshine. Say, when you come to my house, tell me what you see, what you notice as you walk up to the house, as you enter the house, things that are easy to fix that we can address. They might point out, like, your front door is a complete disaster. It's all scratched up by the dog. And, like, you'll be like, yeah, it's been that way for years. Like, I know. Fix it. You're selling your house.
Or like your door is a little bit unlevel, fix your hinges. Little easy fixes. There's an old water stain on the ceiling from after you got your roof fixed but didn't repaint it. Go ahead and just put your extra white paint that you have from moving in. Go ahead and paint over that.
You just touched on something that's really important. If there's something that you did repair or something you've already addressed, make sure you put that in your disclosure, because as an inspector, we sometimes come across repairs that have been done, and I'll just point out to the buyer, I'm like, ask the seller when this was done. I think in the buyer's mind, they're thinking, well, they never told me about this. And you might give a very reasonable explanation about what happened. And you just failed to write it down because you'd forgotten about it. It was a long history. I think the more you disclose and then explain it, it shows that you're approaching everything in an honest manner and you're trying to give them more information. I had a little bit of a challenge. I sold a house that was over 100 years old in Wisconsin, and the agent gave me the disclosure statement and said, Steve, what's happened in your house, or what do you need to disclose? It had fire, flood, locust. It had all these terrible things. And I'm looking at this list, and because I was an inspector, I said, well, all of these things have happened in this house in the last 100 years because I can see the evidence of a fire and a flood and all these things. Mm-hmm. And she, looked at me. She goes, Steve, write down what's happened in the house since you've owned it. I said, oh, okay, yeah, nothing. It's fine. So,
besides you doing a ton of repairs on it and other things that are more, I don't want to say superficial, but...
Oh, all the repairs we did on the house?
Yeah, like little updates or big updates, depending on if you're counting walls that you're tearing down.
Well, that's a nice thing, too. When you're getting your house ready to list, make a list and be proud of all the repairs you did. I've seen printed out lists that people have next to their listing paperwork, and it'll document. It'll say new roof 2021, new water heater, new furnace, new air conditioner, new deck. They'll say the price and they'll say when they put it in. That's a reminder for the potential buyer when they're looking at the house, like, oh, all these things have been done recently, and they can sort of calculate the price you're asking for the house compared to this list of all these repairs and things you've updated. It just makes your house show and look better.
Very good. Very cool.
I have another thing that you should think about as you're getting your home ready for inspection. Mm-hmm. Or getting the title of this episode is getting your home ready for listing. But one thing to keep in mind when you're getting your home ready for listing is that there probably will be a home inspection following it, hopefully after you get an offer. Think about making the job for the home inspector go as smoothly as possible. And what I mean by that is a home inspector needs to get into the attic, they need to get to the furnace, they need to get to the water heater, they need to get to the electrical panel. So it's not unusual when you're packing up and you're excited and you're ready to move, people start filling the garage with boxes. And then the inspector gets there and they can't get into the attic or get to the furnace or even open the electrical panel because there's a couch in the way and a bed stacked there and 55 boxes piled to the ceiling. So that is going to make the prospective buyer turned off because they're going to not be able to get a complete inspection because the home inspector is not going to start moving your personal items because of the liability involved. So leave a clear path so they can complete their task and not have to come back to the house.
Because although it's great to have a nice, clear house, so that way the person looking at the home can have a blank template for what they're wanting to look at inside the house. Once in the garage, that's an access point for a lot of vital infrastructure of the home.
Yeah, if I could pick, looking at the bedrooms and the living room, and not be able to get to the furnace, electrical panel, water heater, attic, I would say no. I'd much rather look at those things, and I'll skip the bedroom and living room, because the possibility of an issue there is lower than the first thing.
And you can get a lot of information about that bedroom and the living room if you're in the attic too, because that's where
The
attic
water
and the
leaks
crawl
start.
space is where there's going to be more issues than in the living space. 'Cause
That
you
and
can
that's
see them
the-
and
and
fix
that's
them
the-
easily.
Right, and the home inspector is looking at the things that homeowners and buyers don't readily see themselves.
I'm Faith,
And I'm Steve.
and this has been your friendly neighborhood home inspector. Thanks for listening. Bye.
This has been a Murawski Inspections podcast. If you want to know more about our services, visit our website at murawskiinspections.com.